To come through on your word, it allows the guys that you're leading, male or female, to be able to say, okay, we can follow this person because he won't let us down. You know, for me, as the leader of our franchise and the leader of my household and the leader of so many, you know, different things, I think it's the confidence, but it's also you practicing what you preach. I'm not a guy who just talks about it. I actually go out and do it as well, from a basketball perspective or from a leadership perspective with my kids and my foundation. You know, we have a promise initiative where they promise me that they will go to school, they will listen to their teachers, they'll be great to their classmates, and I promise them that I will continue to be a great role model, a father figure for them, and not let those guys down. So I take that responsibility, and I don't just talk about it, I actually do it as well. So when you're able to come through on your word, it allows the guys that you're leading, male or female, to be able to say, okay, we can follow this person because he won't let us down. No matter if it's going good or bad. You know, every day is not a bed of roses. We understand that, and you have to be able to handle adversity as well.
When you were 9 or 10 years old, you were walking around one entire summer on your hands because it was something you were working on. When you commit to something, man, you commit to it. Unless you were walking upstairs, you were walking around the entire house on your hands.
Yeah, I'm obsessive compulsive, you know, like when I want to obtain something, I become completely obsessed about it.
Your mom also tells a story about you being at home and seeing on a commercial or on a television show a Hulk Hogan doll. And you stood up on the couch, you're 9 or 10 years old, and you said with enough conviction to give your mom chills that someday there's going to be a George St. Pierre doll. And you knew that as a kid, and she said, I believed him, because that's how much he was definitive about that.
Yeah, I was a big WWE wrestling fan, you know. I used to play with all these dolls, you know. And yeah, I said that to my mom because I was very confident. Like, I had a lot of doubt in my mind, but I knew that I was going to the extreme to obtain what I wanted to. I was like, that's part of my OCD, you know?
You realize along the way, or once you've won something, or once you've made a lot of money, it's like, if you don't enjoy the journey, that moment is so fleeting. It's gone in a second. And if you don't have the inner mindset of loving yourself, of loving who you are, of loving what you do, of wanting to make an impact, of wanting to help others, of wanting to improve someone else's life, like that, it's honestly the most empty feeling if you think that's the only thing. And I remember I had this moment. I had worked so incredibly hard. It had been like 6 years of competing. Some people compete and win right away and they get these covers, and you know, that's just what I thought would happen. And 6 years later, I'm still like not winning, not getting covers, nobody's noticing me. And finally, actually that year, something shifted for me. The year that I won, like swept everything. And what happened is the year prior to that, I had started training other people, go figure, training them for stage, really training them a lot in my studio, really wanting other people to win, like making their wins my win. And what happened is their journey became so much mine, and I became so just immersed in making someone else's life better that next year, it was like I was so fulfilled and happy. And that just radiated. I knew that my purpose wasn't just the body. I knew that my purpose was so much bigger than this one thing, that all of a sudden I showed up on stage as a totally different person. Literally, people were like, who are you? What happened? And I had this moment of, I let go of thinking this was everything, and I actually learned that the journey is about helping other people. It's about, you know, really loving what you do and who you are, but loving the fact that you get to do what you love for other people. And that just, it literally flipped on a dime for me. And that was a moment of, wow, it's never about the titles. Those things are amazing, don't get me wrong, I love them, I'm not gonna lie. But if you don't do both, if you don't use them or use them as a platform for something, they're gonna be really empty because they're just a moment.
Well, I think impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. When someone tells me it's impossible, I always just look at them. Anybody around me knows that they can't do that. So that's part of it. But if they didn't know me, it's your opinion. And they'll say, no, science shows. And I say, yeah, and how many times has science showed something's impossible? Now science shows it's possible. Things are impossible until somebody does it. And so I find that, most of your business people, you look at businesses and what does it take to make a business grow? It's not impossible to make a business grow. A business has been shrinking for a long time, or it's been stuck. The real problem is always, the chokehold is always the psychology and the skills of the leader, always. And 80% of that is psychology and 20% is the mechanics. Like if you don't know how to read your financials and you're trying to fly the plane of your company, I mean, come on. If all you do is go down and you look at profit and loss and you see what it is and you have a beer, either way, you either celebrate or you get depressed, something, you're gonna be in trouble, right? But if you have the skill sets, that's one thing. But you can get any skill set if you have the psychology. And anytime a business is not growing, it is not because it's impossible. It's because they aren't innovating, and they're not innovating because they're believing it's impossible. I mean, if we all know what does it take to transform, and obviously help people, it takes 3 things to create a breakthrough in anything, in your personal life, in your business, anywhere. You need a strategy. But that's not the first place you should look, and it's the first place all of us look. Me too. It's our inherent thing. You want to lose weight? Well, how do I do it? I want to grow my business? How do I do it? It's instinctive. We've been trained to think that way. But the problem is the how-to is usually not that complex. I mean, come on. 70% of Americans, 75% of America now is overweight? Is that because it's so complex how to be fit and strong, right? Only the 1% know the answers. They hide it from you. You have to work your ass off to not hear what it takes, right? And so I remember I went to a TED Med Center and I watched about 12 doctors, one after another, get up and do these stories about how we could just get patients to take their medications and try to figure out the whole thing. And I was just looking and going, you're all talking about strategy and you've forgotten psychology. Because strategy is wonderful. I'm a strategist. I spent my whole life figuring out strategies. As we both know, a strategy could save you a decade, right? In business, strategy could save you, it could make the difference between success and failure. But most people have strategies available, or they could get them, or you could create them. But the problem is you got a story. And your story is why it isn't working. And the story is, I've tried what? What? Everything. If you tried everything, you'd be fit, right? If you tried everything, you'd be profitable. If you tried everything, you'd be there. But people say it, I'm big boned. That's what I used to say. I'm still big boned, but I'm 38 pounds lighter than I was 25 years ago, and I've never gained it back, right? When I was big boned, that was my story. All the good ones are gone. That's why I'm not in a relationship. Or they're gay and I'm not, or I'm gay and they are, or whatever the story is. There's always a story. And what I tell people is, if you can just divorce the story of your limitation and marry the truth of your unlimited capacity, then the whole game changes.
Beating the self-esteem drum for 50 years. Oh no, you're okay. You should feel good about yourself. Like, you're fine the way you are. It's like you think, well, that's a calming message for people. It's like, no, it's not. It's not at all. And I watch my audiences. It's like, it's full of people in the audience who think, I'm suffering a lot more than I think is tenable. A whole bunch of it's my fault. My life is not in the order it should be. I know I'm doing 50 things wrong. It's like, what the hell's wrong with me? What's wrong with the people around me? This is really serious. And some, well-meaning person comes up and says, you're okay just the way you are. It's like, no one wants that message. It's like, no, I'm not okay the way I am. I'm not okay at all the way I am. I know that. And so, when I'm speaking when I'm speaking now, I say to people, well, you're nowhere near what you could be. That's the positive message. It's like, yeah, you're a mess, but you don't have to stay that way. If you're a mess, you know it, obviously. You're suffering away like so much you can barely tolerate it. It's like, that's okay. You can do something about it. And that's the thing that turns the lights on. It's like, you could do something about it. It's like, oh.
I started studying people that did more. Not people that didn't do more, not people that said do less, not people that said, hey, don't be satisfied or be satisfied, not people that said, hey, be grateful for what you have. I started studying people that said and had done more, that you can do more. That's who I listen to today. I listen to the people, my friends in my life, the people I listen to, the people I talk to, the people that I follow on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. I don't follow everybody. I follow the people that say, you can do more, dude. I follow the people that say, I am doing more. I follow the people that are actually doing something on this planet to make a difference for the better. You have to be selective. You have to give something up, okay? You cannot listen to everybody, to every voice, to every person that's quit or given up. you got to make a decision. If you have that little voice inside of you that says you can do more, you have to give attention to that voice, and you got to feed it with those that support that idea that you can do more.
It's a very natural process to begin something, to be very excited, and then as you go down that process to realize, yeah, I actually don't like this, it's not giving me as much energy as I thought it would, it's taking energy away, and therefore I wanna give up and quit that thing. And she said, if you do that once or twice, like, hey, so be it, but if you're doing it every time, if you just love that initial rush, that excitement of something new, but the actual nitty-gritty reality of getting good at it, of doing what Michio Kaku calls having butt power, meaning you sit your butt in the seat and you do the work, if that's really your problem and nothing is interesting enough for you to sit there and do the work, you haven't developed grit yet. And so grit is the ability to persevere, to see things through, to go past the point at which it has stopped being fun and it becomes boring because you believe in your end goal enough, you're excited by what you're trying to accomplish so much that you're willing to fight through all of that difficulty. You're willing to fight through the boredom, you're willing to fight through the unease that arises when you step outside your comfort zone, you're doing things you're not good at, and things that are boring. Those are the two things that I find kill most people. They just cannot handle the things that make them go, oh God, like I'm not very good at this and I'm feeling really badly about myself. And they forget that they can get good on a long enough timeline. And then two, inevitably, in any pursuit of greatness, in any endeavor where you're trying to gain mastery, you're gonna get bored. Because practice is repetition. It's doing something over and over and over and over to really train yourself to get to the point where you're truly exceptional. And there's just so much boredom inherent in that process. So building in the resilience to see all that stuff through is the key part of grit.
Every single morning, Monday through Fridays at 9 a.m., I host a live call-in radio show on Sirius Satellite Radio. It's called Make It Happen with Mel Robbins. And the thing that's been so crazy about that show is every single person that calls me on that show, they call in because they're feeling stuck in their lives and they're resigned about their ability to change their lives. And I'm not talking about people that are nuts. I'm talking about successful people like you and me that just somehow got stuck in their lives. And I'm not talking about people that are looking for cheesy self-help. I'm talking about people that really want to figure out how to move themselves forward. And you know, I find that so many of us think that our dreams are unreachable or unrealistic, and it's just so sad. I mean, people think that their dreams disappear. And if that's what you think, congratulations, you're officially stuck. And the truth is that our dreams are always there, and they don't ever give up on us, we give up on them. But here's the secret. If you just force yourself, and I mean force, because I know damn well none of you want to do anything about this, and I also know you're sitting there like, yeah, this self-help crap, this isn't for me. But if you just force yourself to take a couple small steps, there's always a surprise.
I kept my job at McKinley, and part-time I started in the financial services industry and started to build a team of people and started to get my licenses and that transition, and I struggled like every upstart entrepreneur does.
Well, it takes like 3 to 5 years until you really get a few clients, you know.
In any business, I don't care if it's financial services, tech, dry cleaners, entrepreneurs, the first 5 years is just full of false starts. You get it going, then you don't. You get it going, you take a step forward, you take 3 back. It's constant false starts. It's constantly thinking you have it going. It's constantly negotiating in your mind the price you're paying. Is it worth it? Should I quit? Should I give in? I spent the first 5 years daily contemplating quitting. All the time. Even in the good time. It wasn't fun. And there's just a part of you, I think, in anything you're doing when you're struggling, is this really for me? Is this my destiny? Should I be doing this? And we misread failure from some sign. You know, is this a sign I shouldn't be doing it? You know, is this a sign I am, you know, not cut out for this? Instead of looking for signs that you can win, right? And so I spent the first 5 years literally trying to find ways to quit, trying to find ways to get out, struggling and struggling and struggling. And I went broke. I lost a car. I had the water turned off in my place. I bought my first house. I ended up having it foreclosed on eventually. So I'm not that house with the unicorns that you saw, right? Or my beach place. Like, that's all the after. People don't realize that there were just years and years of grinding and struggling and worrying in the beginning. And then I made some mental changes and some shifts that altered my life then again.
There's differences, and then there's not differences. So, you know, the brain is the same. The brain evolved over the course of millions of years. So I try to make the point that what Da Vinci was going through the process there's a template there, and it's the same because our brains haven't really changed in an evolutionary sense in 400 or 500 years. On the other hand, the circumstances are different, and people now live in a world where there's many more distractions, so it's harder to do that kind of focus that I was mentioning. So in some ways it's a little bit harder, and the people that I've interviewed are really good at shutting out all of the distractions of the world. That's sort of what separates them. Every single one of them. Paul Graham, you know Paul Graham? Paul doesn't have a smartphone. He doesn't spend time on the internet. He's extremely focused. The woman Yoki Matsuoka, she does all of her writing with a pen and paper. She's not sitting there day in and day out on the computer checking her Facebook or Twitter page or whatever. I could go through all of them that way. Steve Jobs is sort of the ultimate icon of mastery of our era. And he said the only thing that's differentiated me from everyone else was my level of focus. I could take a problem and I could focus on it and burrow into it, and everybody else was so distracted. He knew how to close his door, get away from his wife, his kids, everyone, and just focus. So all of these people have to overcome the intense distractions in our world, and they're able to do it. On the other hand, what you can get with a click on the internet, with a Google search, compared to what Da Vinci had to do, or a scientist in the 19th or 20th century, is absolutely astounding. So what you have at your fingertips, the knowledge, the things that you can connect and learn about, the potential for learning skills is out of this world. So if you're able to overcome the distracting elements that are, my girlfriend and I compare it to if you ever watch a basketball game and you see the opposing team shooting a free throw, and everyone behind him in the stands are all going like this with those big, trying to distract him. There's like hundreds of people. That's what the world is like now. You've got thousands of people waving those things. You've got so many distractions. If you're able to overcome that and be a person that can focus, you have this like wealth of information and knowledge and ability to acquire skills that nobody 100 years ago, 20 years ago could dream about.
A lot of these interviews, the question that's the worst is people will say, where do you get your ideas? I don't know where I get them. And if I did, man, would I tell you? I mean, Jesus, they've been good to me. All I know is that I sit down and I turn on the machine, and there's always that first 10 minutes that's like smelling a dead fish or walking into a monkey house. And then something will click a little tiny bit, and that leads to something else. And it's like choo, 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 until it's going faster and faster. And then you hit this kind of escape velocity. You're gone. The world, the normal, mundane, sort of stupid world where you got to do the breakfast dishes and you got to make the beds, and you got to worry about getting the kid to the dentist. All that's gone. But there's a place where you have to walk away from it because it's so kind of addictive. That otherwise, you might just sit there and skip meals and just be lost in that world. And you wouldn't want to do that because that's sort of the way crazy people are in institutions. You know what I'm saying?
I'm in meetings a lot. My calendar gets very full with those. And then at night, after the kids have gone to bed, I'm on email a great deal. I get messages during the day. That's my chance to give long responses. And then over the weekend, I send a lot of mail as well. I take 2 weeks a year to just go off and read and think, where I'm not interrupted by work or anything else. I'm just solidly trying to think about the future, and people get to send me things to read as part of that so-called Think Week. So it's a nice mix of things. About 25% of the time that I'm out traveling around, meeting with customers, Europe, Asia, and that sort of helps me think, okay, do we have the right priorities? What are people responding well to, and what would they like to see us do better?
Well, gratitude is one of the most strongest forms of power in attracting good things. You know, if you truly feel grateful for the things in your life, I always felt grateful for even the small things. I always used to celebrate the small things. Now I might be celebrating the bigger things, but I always celebrate every little good thing that would happen to me in my life, even before I had any kind of money or any of that. I would celebrate and I would feel grateful for it, and it just gave me more. And this is exactly the same thing that's happening right now. I still remain grateful, and more comes.
Goals continue to change and to continue to get bigger. And I think as I sort of reach certain milestones, certain accomplishments, it only makes me realize that I need to dream bigger. And I think that same thing for you guys. I think as you really build that confidence through your career, as you really start building your career and building your relationships and seeing your dreams actually realized, you just have to continue to keep dreaming bigger. And that's why it's so important to always continue learning, in my opinion, because you've never made it. I think we all can always continue to do more, and to be better and bigger.
Goal, if you own a business, and I would assume a lot of your viewers are business owners or getting started in business, no matter how good you are in business, think about this. The one universal rule that idiots in finance know is diversification. It's the only free lunch. You gotta diversify. Because if you put all your eggs in one basket, no matter how good the basket is, one day that real estate market, that stock market, that bond market, that collectibles market, whatever you invest in, Ray Dalio showed me statistically, it'll drop 50 to 70% on a day. Now, if you're later in life when that happens, it's over for you.
Right.
So you have to diversify, and yet most people, they know real estate, so they do it, or they know stocks, so they do it, or they grew up with their parents flipping things, and it's the wrong thing to do. So you've got to diversify in order for you to be able to truly succeed, and that's why when you own a business, if you put all your money in your business, which is what most of us do naturally,
It's a lot of risk.
You put all your eggs in one basket, and there's things that can happen. I mean, let's say you spent 20 years and you figured out how to put together the ultimate map, and you remember Garmin came out with this thing called the TomTom. I don't know if you remember, you used to put on your, are you old enough to remember that? You used to put on your phone? Or you used to put on your dash? Cost $100. It was a breakthrough.
They were making like 100 million or something.
They were. 6 months later, what happened?
The iPhone came out with Google Maps.
These little bastards, excuse my French, came out with it, put Google Maps, put their own map on here, and it costs how much? $0. What's that gonna do to your business when someone takes your product or service and gives it away for free? So I always tell people, competition happens, technology happens. What you must do is have a second business with no moving parts, no people, no time. Maybe it takes you 3 days a year for 2 or 3 hours after you've read the book. You put it in place and you measure it 2 or 3 times a year. That's it. Go on with your life. Now, if there's a trouble in your business, you're financially set. In my life, have 31 companies now. We have, what do we have? 1,200 employees, 7 different industries. We do $5 billion in sales. I mean, that used to be, me and my seminar business. It's grown geometrically. But with all those moving parts, the only way I've been able to succeed is because I've taken every one of those businesses and I've diversified my assets so that when things were in trouble, I still had enough economics to take care of myself and keep the business going. So everybody needs to create a money machine that works while you sleep, that doesn't have moving parts, and that's what this is really about.
I don't know, there's a lot of negativity to some degree, a lot of grind. It just kind of feels like the grind a little bit. So I just kind of felt like it wasn't a space that I wanted to be in as much anymore. Like I want to be in a happy space where I'm just doing things that bring me joy. And it wasn't doing that as much, or I was noticing it. I was noticing I was missing that or wanting it more. I think that's really what it comes from, is growing as a person and realizing, I think everybody's afraid to take chances and do something new in their life because they're identified a certain way, or they'll be judged if they don't do it, or judged if they do something different. And who are they now? And are they crazy? And what are they thinking? And, it's just life. Just do things that make you happy.
I do think that and it's not just in sport, but with other things, I do believe that the more you repeat certain things, whether it is writing, working on your, whether it's cursive letters or whatever it is, like when you work on something and you keep doing it over and over, it's inevitable that it will get better. And by that, you're creating this feeling of repetition, which leads to discipline. Like, you can do it over and over again. And that's one of my first coaches, Robert Lansdorp, who I speak about in the book. Like, that was his philosophy, is I would take a lesson from him, and his philosophy was just hitting and grinding, and it wasn't about patterns or anything, which, you know, I could get from somebody else. But what he gave me is that feeling that I could hit the ball from any part of the court and feel like I could do it with closed eyes and make it and know exactly where it's going. And for me, it started at a young age. Like, my mom would like make me memorize this Russian literature that I did not appreciate at 5 years old. It was very difficult, and I didn't know what it meant, but I would do it, and I would memorize it, and then I would feel that I accomplished something. I don't know why, I don't know, but the repetition led me to this discipline, and I think that helps with mindset.
It's all in the mindset. When you get up in the morning, you do what you normally do. I would eventually say a lot of you here probably turn on your cell phones, your computers, and what's the latest email, what's the latest text that comes in. You start your day off like that. That's your mindset. Try this. Get up in the morning, do whatever you have to do. Don't turn the computer on. Don't turn the TV on. Go right back to bed again. Either lay there or sit there and just bring the universe to you. Here's how you do it. You just be. It's virtually impossible when you first do it because 1,000 thoughts come through your head. We're human beings. So what you do is you're sitting in bed, look at the wall, look at the off TV set, look at the ceiling, look at the door, look at something in the room that gets your attention, and just look at it and just be for a couple of minutes. Not 10 minutes, not 20 minutes, not 2 days, just be. When your mind wanders, find another spot in the room to look at so you're back in present time, even for a couple of minutes. Now go about your day. Don't think about what you're gonna do. For that split few minutes, you're now becoming part of a universe, which is also part of global thinking.
Oscar, how did you go from being my assistant to a famous big-time movie producer?
Just by never taking no for an answer and following, believing I could do anything, which I learned in the Nice Dad studio.
All right.
Seriously, this guy would just, over and over again, I'd never seen anything like it. He would just say, "You're smart, figure it out. You're smart, figure it out. You're smart, figure it out. I don't care how long it takes, just make it beautiful." And that sounded a little weird at the time because you're used to working at a restaurant or being a landscaper. But it was actually really empowering, and it took me a while to figure that out. And the more movies I made, the more I realized it didn't matter. It kind of applies to everything.
Do not cast pearls before swine. And what that means is that if people are not listening to you, stop talking to them. And that is the best piece of advice that I can give you. And what happens is that if you stop talking to people who aren't listening to you and start watching them instead, they will tell you what they're up to. But so if you have things to say them, but you find people that will listen, talk to them. The ones who aren't listening, pull back. Because you're devaluing what you have to say by offering it to an audience that does nothing but reject it. And that's a good guideline to life in general. So pull back.
Too many of you in here have ego around your time when it's the only thing you got. So the reason I always know is because I work. Because I work. I try things, I test, I DM you back, I tweet, I work. So when you're in shit, you taste it. And when you've done it for 20 years, you see patterns. Facebook's still underpriced. You just can't target 22 to 25-year-old African-American fans of football because other people are doing that too now. It's just like Google. Early on, you could just target soccer. One word, 5 cents a click. I did it. Wine. But then I had to put, at the end of the game, now I got to put 2013, Heller Sellers, Zinfandel, like long tail. Real estate. If you're right about London, look, this is my favorite. Do you understand that somebody once bought this building for $1? Somebody bought the land we're on for $1 once. That happened. It's a long time ago. How do you know? You're a practitioner. The reason I do is how I learn. You got to put out, all of you are like, well, I can't do podcasting and Facebook and Twitter. Oh, but I can vlog, but I can't. Why? If you want it so bad. My thing is why? If you want it so bad, why can't, if you want to have a media company around Caribbean food culture, why can't you? You know what I want to see? I want to see all your minutes. I want to see all your minutes. I want to give you D-Rock for today. I want to watch you from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. Let me promise you something. You're going to get exposed. So that's why Daily V happened. Because you guys, like a lot of you didn't know me before Daily V. How many people knew me before Daily V? Well, not bad, right? You got to really know me post Daily V. You heard hard work and hustle before, you were confused. And I've been doing that shit every day for 20 years.
Fail early, fail often, fail forward. You know, it's always a little bit frustrating to me when people have a negative relationship with failure. Failure is a massive part of being able to be successful. You have to get comfortable with failure. You have to actually seek failure. Failure is where all of the lessons are. You know, when you go to the gym and you work out, you're actually seeking failure. You want to take your muscles to the point where you get to failure, because that's where the adaptation is. That's where growth is. Successful people fail a lot. They fail a whole lot more than they succeed, but they extract the lessons from the failure and they use that, the energy, and they use the wisdom to come around to the next phase of success. You gotta take a shot. You have to live at the edge of your capabilities. You gotta live where you're almost certain you're gonna fail. That's the reason for practice. Practice is controlled failure. You're getting to your limit, getting to your limit, getting to your limit. You can't lift that, you can't do that, until you get to the point that all of a sudden your body makes the adjustment and then you can do it. Failure actually helps you to recognize the areas where you need to evolve. So fail early, fail often, fail forward.
I hear a lot of guys saying right now, like, hey, only do the things you want to do. Dude, I do stuff I don't want to do every single day, okay? So I don't know who these people are that don't do the things they don't want to do. Maybe they were given a business or something, but I'm going to tell you something, man. If you don't do the things you don't want to do, you're not going to grow your business. You won't keep your business. I'm telling you, you have to be willing to do. You got to be so obsessed that you don't care. See, an obsessed person doesn't care if they have to clean a toilet. You know, yep. An obsessed person doesn't care if they don't like that activity, but they have to do it. You're obsessed, you're in it, you do it anyway, no matter what. I remember my mom told me one day, she's like, you know, Grant, I love you just the way you are. Because I'm telling her about all these dreams I have as a child, right? Yeah. And I was reminded when my sister told me like 30 years later, you know, Grant, you've done a lot. We love you just the way you are. And I'm like, dude, I wonder how many times I've been told that. You know, wow. and the fact is, so what they love me just the way I am? I don't. I don't love me just the way I am, which opens up to this whole field of people that's like, just love yourself the way you are. Look, if you're broke, you're not living on purpose, you don't like your job, you can't get away from your job, dude. If you're stuck in a house you don't like, why would you want to love that? You should become obsessed with hating it, man. It's obsessed or average, one of the two. So just pick. Get a t-shirt, obsessed, or get another t-shirt, average.
Which one would you be more proud wearing, right?
Yeah. Who do I want to be, man? Who do I want to be? How do I want to die, man? I want to die all in.
I'm not Mr. Mentor. I'm not the one who says, let's sit down, tell me how it's going. I'm gonna tell you exactly how I am. Get off your ass and get out there and sell something.
That's right.
I mean, I've never been okay, I need a mentor. You know, a lot of people look for mentors thinking they're gonna tell me the shortcut. Mark, will you be my mentor? You know the way. And they think I'm gonna go, ooh, and like, convey some magics. Here's the dust, go, go, go. It doesn't work that way. I still grind, I love to grind. If you're competing in one of my businesses, I'm gonna kick your ass because I'm gonna outgrind you, right? That's what being an entrepreneur is. You've got to get out there and do the work. So when it comes to how do you learn, right? Because that's the question, how do I learn this stuff? Man, everybody has got to go through that process. right? I read I'm in the tech business, I'm in the media business, the entertainment business. I've got to try to prepare myself for all the Shark Tank businesses. I read 3 hours plus a day, right? Well, everybody else is getting a suntan, or even when I'm getting a suntan, I'm online or I've got books, I'm reading all I can.
If you want to make progress in things, I think that the best analytical framework for understanding the future is physics. I'd recommend studying the thinking process around physics, like not the equations. I mean, the equations certainly they're helpful, but the way of thinking in physics is it's the best framework for understanding things that are counterintuitive. And you know, always taking the position that you are to some degree wrong, and your goal is to be less wrong over time. I think one of the biggest mistakes people generally make, and I'm guilty of it too, is wishful thinking. You know, like you want something to be true, even if it isn't true. And so you ignore the things that, you ignore the real truth because of what you want to be true. This is a very difficult trap to avoid. And like I said, it's certainly one that I find myself in having problems with. But if you just take that approach of you're always to some degree wrong, and your goal is to be less wrong, and solicit critical feedback, particularly from friends. Like particularly friends, if somebody loves you, they want the best for you. They don't want to tell you the bad things. So you have to ask them, you know, and say, really, I really do want to know. and then they'll tell you.
Well, there's a ton of failures along the way, that's for sure. Like I said, as I said, for SpaceX, the first 3 launches failed. And we're just barely able to scrape together enough parts and money to do the 4th launch. If that 4th launch had failed, we would have been dead. So multiple failures along the way. I tried very hard to get the right expertise in for SpaceX. I tried hard to find a great chief engineer for the rocket, but the good chief engineers wouldn't join, and the bad ones, well, there was no point in hiring them. So I ended up being chief engineer of the rocket. So if I could have found somebody better, then we would have maybe had less than 3 failures.
How do I get over my block of I am never good enough, especially when my significant other has high expectations but does not support me in reaching those expectations? Okay, so we have 2 issues. So first of all, getting over your block of I'm not good enough. For me, the thing that absolutely destroyed all of that is my unflagging belief in one simple thing. I can learn anything. So I may not be good at that thing now. I may really not be good enough. Like when I think about building a studio to rival Disney, I'm not good enough yet. There's a huge chasm in skill set between me and Bob Iger and being able to do that. I fully understand that. And I have to do something different, which is founders create all the energy, whereas Bob Iger came in they've been in business for like 75 years or something by the time he came along. So it is a really intriguing skill set to be able to both build and create something, scale it, and then run it once it's big. So I know full well that I am not yet the person that I need to be in order to do that. And so my time and energy is spent in building that skill set. So I don't freak out over the fact that I'm not good enough. That's very easy for me to admit. I instead spend my time thinking about how do I acquire those skills in order to actually become good enough. So don't let your self-worth be tied up in that notion of good enough. Humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. From that, I derive my sort of high-level sense of worth that, hey, every human being has worth because they're an ultimate adaptation machine and they can become anything they want. That's just really cool and amazing. And then also, I just am deeply compassionate for the human condition. So, yeah, regardless of where people fall on that path of actually executing against that potential, I get it, man. Being a human is both beautiful, amazing, all this potential, and it's really hard. So have compassion for yourself, which I think is incredibly important, and know that this is hard. And then believe that you can become anything that you set your mind to. And then just be honest with yourself. You don't have to want to be the greatest in the world. So whether you let somebody else apply those high standards to you or not is completely your choice. Just remember, it's a choice. And you're not great because you can't be. You're not great because you haven't applied yourself to that. So that is the key. For me, like understanding that my life is an exact reflection of my choices is entirely liberating. So remember, your life is an exact reflection of your choices. If you want a different result, you simply need to make a different choice.
You know, I've heard a lot of experts say that fear isn't real. That is such a bunch of baloney. Fear is so real. In fact, there are probably things that you're afraid of doing right now in your life, in your relationships, at work. And the fact that you're afraid, that's robbing you of all of the experiences that you want to have in your life. I mean, if you're afraid to fly, that's going to limit your ability to travel and see the world or go visit friends. If you're afraid of public speaking, that's going to really limit your ability to express yourself and share your ideas. If you're afraid of talking to your boss or asking for a raise, that directly impacts how much money you make. Or what if you are dreaming of starting a business, or you've already started a new business, but you're afraid to talk to people and you're afraid to share your business with people? I mean, fear is something that stops us all. And that's why I'm here to talk to you, because it doesn't have to. Fear is real, but I am going to share a secret weapon that I have used for years to beat every single fear that used to stop me. Now, first, before we get into this secret weapon, I just want to cover a few facts about fear, what it is, what it isn't, and some things that you may not know about fear. So first thing, fear is a physical state in your body that is exactly the same as excitement. Let me say that again. Fear and excitement are the exact same physical state. Your heart races. You might sweat a little bit. You might feel tightening in your chest. You might feel a pit in your stomach. You have a surge of cortisol. It's basically the way that your body goes into a hyper-aware state because it's readying for action. Now, what's the difference between fear and excitement? Really simple. The only difference between fear and excitement is what your brain is doing as your body is all agitated. If you're excited, your brain's going, oh, wow, this is going to be so cool to ride this roller coaster. If you're afraid, your brain's going, no way, there's no way I'm doing that. This is dangerous. Get out of there. Don't do that. It's saying something different. So what's critical about understanding this is that we're going to use the fact that your mind is either working for you for excitement or against you with fear to your advantage. And I'll tell you about it in just a minute, how you're going to do that. Second thing I want you to understand is that you may have heard the advice, feel the fear and do it anyway. You may have heard the advice, oh, just try to calm down. Think positive thoughts. It doesn't work, does it? And there's a reason why it doesn't work. So let's go back to fact number one. When you're afraid, your body's in a state of arousal and agitation, and your heart is racing, and you're all like amped up, and you're hyper aware of what's going on, and you're freaking out a little bit. What is it like when you're calm? You just kind of chill, right? You got like this low arousal state. Very, very difficult to go from a state of agitation and being all jacked up and excited and weirded out and to a kind of state. It doesn't work. It's like trying to stop a train by throwing a boulder on the tracks. It's going to make the train jump off the tracks. It's going to cause a disaster. In fact, they've proven in research that when you try to ignore your fears, it actually makes them worse. And they've also proven in research that positive thinking alone also can make your fears worse. So, what do you do? What do you do when you're about to go talk to your boss and you feel afraid? What do you do when you have to get on a plane and you're actually terrified of flying? What do you do if you got to give a presentation and you are afraid of public speaking? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to use a strategy, the same one that I use, that has helped me beat every single fear and turned me into somebody that is terrific when it comes to a high-stress situation. This is how you do it. You're going to use my 5-second rule in combination with what I call an anchor thought, and that is going to reframe what your mind is doing so that your mind goes from feeling agitation and making you afraid to reframing it from agitation to excitement. It works like magic. Now, I have used this technique for years, literally for years. And one of the ways that I want to introduce you to it is I want to take you backstage. I want to take you backstage to a speech that I delivered this year. And what you're going to see is you're going to see me behind, the major set. I'm about to walk out. You can kind of hear the crowd roaring. My introductory video is playing. My body is in a state of arousal. I am literally, my heart is racing, my arms are sweating. Like you're going to see this. I'm going to tell you about it. And you're going to watch me use this same technique I'm going to teach you to reframe my nerves into excitement.
I was believing more. I mean, I sure did like what I was doing, and I had people, and I couldn't, honestly, at that time, the $320 I was getting, I was like, is this legal? Because it was so much fun, and I was really looking over my shoulder going, and I kept getting invited back, and then I'd have people come up and go, hey man, you're good at this. And I was like, well, thanks, because it sure is fun. So I really didn't know. I guess secretly, if I look back and I look at my diaries, there was hope underlying, but I was still like, I need to go out and get a job. And if I can pursue acting on the side, get a PA job, get in the storytelling business behind the camera, and let's see. And then another funny thing happened. That first audition when I got out here was for a casting director named Hank McCann. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was for a film called Boys on the Side. And I went and read, and he goes, I think you did really good. I'll have you for a callback sometime later. I went off from there. I get called in for a baseball film, Angels in the Outfield. I walk in the door. There's a bunch of funny peculiarities about how the hell I got to be standing here today. I walk in the door, it was backlit. I remember I had an American cap on. It was on Warner Brothers Light. I open up the door, it was backlit in the afternoon. Producer's sitting on the couch. He looks up and goes, hey, look at you. The all-American kid. He goes, you ever played baseball? I said, 12 years. He goes, you got the job. So they pay me Schedule F, $48,500 to go play baseball for 11 weeks in Oakland. Again, I'm going, what is this business? But it happened, and during that, I got called back to read for Herbert Ross for Boys on the Side and got that role. And so that Coen Brothers film that got pushed, that PA job that I would have taken if it was there, never happened, and I haven't PA'd.